we're back for Expecting Unexpected by our Vulpix, and apparently we're back too. We're on chapter 72, and if you want to follow along, chapter link will be in the description below as always. However, if link doesn't work because YouTube might be is being weird with links or something. It's go on the website fanfiction.net. Make sure you look up Arthur Vulpix because that would just be easier. And then it's Expecting Unexpected. And we are on chapter 72. So, last chapter, I believe we just finished the fourth night of the Fast Free one. I think it was fourth night. I can't remember. I just remember there was a lot of chocolate and chaos and hilarity that I personally loved. So, let's just get right into this with chapter 72 Loophole. Springtrap didn't announce himself this time, though they noticed him immediately. They could only watch as he shot the room a smile. He'd come earlier, probably to avoid running to Ruby again. He tensed as she heard his heavy footsteps approach from behind as Jeremy stared over her shoulder. Springtrap didn't walk like a human. Any memory of those organic movements that echoed of humanity were probably long gone. But he didn't quite move like an animatronic either. It was uncanny, unsettling. He didn't breathe, but she could feel the skin on the back of her neck crawl as he leaned over her. The ghosts were watching with wide eyes, but not hiding yet. This was safer than being alone. "What are you doing, kiddo?" he asked, his voice still gravelly. "Go away!" Jeremy hissed. Springtrap chuckled, but otherwise ignored the man. Maggle sat, and Hedy pulled her hands away to avoid getting pinched. The fox didn't want to be laid down around the killer. She stared at him in hatred as she swung her legs to face him and held out a hand to Hedy again so the mechanic could keep working. Maggle continued to stare at Springtrap, unblinking. Springtrap sighed in mock sadness. "Aw, you're just going to throw me? You are always so toxic, Wiggy." Hedy still didn't say anything to him, though she gave Jeremy a weak smile in an attempt to reassure her brother, while Springtrap couldn't see it from his angle. Jerry stared unconvinced as he picked apart tiny pieces of Mangle's hand, moving plating around and straightening very thin wires. The rabbit kept his grin and glanced around at the watchful room. He reached for a screwdriver sitting next to her and jerked her hands away as Springtrap suddenly snatched it, their hands brushing. He held it in front of her. "Jeremy, what are you doing with this thing?" Hedy stared. The first bit of emotion she had shown him decidedly setting on confusion. After a moment, her face twisted in anger as she realized he hadn't meant the screwdriver. Mangles and the rest of the box stared at him. "Mangle's not a thing. She's more of a person than you are," he said, her voice impressively even. Mags flinched. She didn't like Hedy breaking her vow of silence for her sake. It's funny the staff stuck with that name. "The Mangle," Springtrap said conversationally, like he hadn't heard the human. "I suggested a Franken's box, but it didn't stick. Actually, I think it was Scott that suggested Mangle, either him or Pops." "Nah, Fitzgerald wasn't the most creative guy." "Give me back the screwdriver," Hedy said with an eerie calmness. Springtrap's smile grew just a little more and held up the tool, the sharp point of the Phillips head screwdriver pointed at her face. Freddie froze, and he heard the others do the same as their gears creaked. Mangle's eyes spiraled wide, too terrified to look away. Springtrap can't do anything. They have to remind themselves. He can't. He can't hurt anyone. Jerry's breath caught as the animatronic hovered the point of the screwdriver inches from Hedy's right eye. He waved it in little circles like a wand, tracing the rings of her eye in the air. They could all see him thinking through his next action, trying to decide if he should even try stabbing her in the face like that. The building would stop him, but it was the principle of trying. Springtrap's grin popped a little wider. He jerked his arms forward just a little, and Hedy flinched, squeezing her eyes shut and sharply turning her face away as some of the others squeaked in terror and Jeremy's stomach dropped, like anyone's would. Hedy cursed herself. She knew he couldn't hurt her. Then why was there this awful pit of fear sinking into her limbs like poison? The lights in the room flickered, reacting to the ghost kid's mood as the metal tip of the screwdriver lightly scratched against her cheek, and Springtrap hummed happily, tapping her on the nose before flipping the tool around in his hand and holding the handle out to Hedy. I thought you was a brave one, Wiggy, Springtrap said in disappointment, leaning on the table next to her. But I suppose that was never the case. Did I tell you to watch? Keep your eyes open? Leave her alone, Jerry said again, but his voice was weaker, knowing he couldn't really do anything to stop the murderer. Made him curious. Why did Ruby include him in the deal? Springtrap ignored him like usual. I'm surprised you ran. You saw the chance to abandon your friends and took it like a coward. All when it was your fault they were there to begin with. Hedy continued to stare at the circuitry she was working on a moment ago, refusing to respond again as she forced herself to look away. The ghost kids could just watch, glaring with hatred that only grew with every word. Frankly, I'm surprised they don't blame you just the same as everyone else did. The killer shot a twisted grin at the children. Felix opened his mouth to respond, his eyes lit with rage. She's one of us, Benji snapped adamantly. The words spilling out, the building shuddering around them, temperature dropping to the freezing degrees. No one moved their gaze from the killer, though. Springtrap stared for the briefest of seconds, an interested frown flashing on his face, then laughed in glee. You're not jealous she's alive? Not even a little. Hard to believe. What do you mean, everyone else? Cher whispered in fear, even as he glared at her. You're encouraging him, he snapped. Don't speak to him. Springtrap grinned and answered Cheryl with a triumphant smile. Your parents, of course. He looked towards Ginny, who stood the closest to Hedy, standing behind the adult's wheelchair. Not so much hiding behind it like Benji beside her, but more guarding. I heard your mommy couldn't stand coming home every day and seeing Hank was next door alive, and he paused and laughed. I wouldn't call that well, at least mentally. But you know, in one piece at least. Ginny's eyes widened in shock. All the kids looked disturbed. They hadn't thought of their parents in a while. It hurt too much. Jeremy snarled. Ginny swallowed, her ghostly anger wavering just barely as she glanced at Hedy, who wore a blank expression. But she could tell Hedy was hurt. The fear and grief was rolling off her in waves. Did Hedy want to cry? Ginny couldn't tell. What was sadness supposed to feel like? She couldn't remember. You watched everyone leave, Springtrap said to Hedy, one by one. They couldn't stand to even look at you. He stared at her without a word, mangled, trembling from anger. Oh, it was so sad. Terrified little Hedy would climb into the only mother figure she had, only for her to back up and disappear without a goodbye. Ginny couldn't do it anymore and disappeared, Frederick following. He couldn't blame her. The onlookers were getting sick of this. They were sick of being tormented long ago, but it was getting worse by the second. Nancy looked close to tears in her anger. She had so much she wanted to scream at the possessed rabbit, but her broken voice kept her mute. She was hiding behind Chica. She sobbed quietly. Oddly, the original didn't seem to mind and used one arm to hold the small chicken in behind her out of sight. Did you ever wonder? Springtrap asked, the question hanging in the air without any context. No one took the bait. Did you ever wonder what I was going to do with you? He asked, leaning closer, putting more weight on the table. It creaked under the weight of two animatronics. He wasn't going to take the screwdriver from his hand. He set it down in front of her, his hand reaching between her and Mangold, but he didn't simply drop the tool and retract his hand. To everyone's horror, he reached up and took Hedy's chin, turning her face to look at him as she violently flinched and tried to pull away. But he took his other arm and grabbed her shoulder close to her neck with disconcerting gentleness. Jeremy tried to get up to attack Springtrap, or at least violently pushed him away, but a cold pain hit his limbs as he fell back into the chair with a shout. Marinette stood up behind the group, but He suddenly locked up as his gears froze, no one even noticing his sharp movements. Mangle snarled and tried to jump, but immediately cried out in pain and halted as something sparked. The building trembled just slightly at their attempt. Jeremy tried to pull his little sister away as the others were startled that Springtrap had even touched her. You shouldn't be able to do that, right? Oh, relax. I'm not hurting her, am I? The killer chuckled. Tell me, Wiki, did you ever wonder? He stared at her, still holding a decrepit animatronic thumb to her chin and a single finger down her neck to keep her eyes on him. The action was almost tender, like a father about to wipe a child's tears away. It made Jeremy want to throw up. The room chilled, and the ghost didn't know whether to get away from Springtrap or close Hedy with him holding like that. After a long moment that was mixed with panic, horror, and confusion from everyone, Hedy whispered, Yes. Springtrap chuckled. You were always the smart one. He looked up, still holding her in a terrifying mockery of care. Anyone curious? No one answered. There are 5 of you, Springtrap said cryptically, looking at the originals, his eyes drifting to wool. Goldie. All shut down, of course. But I was planning on 6 kiddos that day. I didn't miscount. I just didn't intend on leaving it anyway. No. Now, where was I gonna hide her body, huh? He grinned sickeningly. He leaned in so he and Hedy were very close. Surely you all can figure that out. He stared at the stolen animatronic's face. She could see the edges of where his eyelight set into the socket. You always liked spring, didn't you, Hagrid? Jerry's face paled as all the color washed away and the toys flinched, while the originals looked very ill. Or do you even remember him at all? I know he adored you, with you always coming into the shack, even when your pops told you to stay out of parts and services. I think even Scott tried to tell you off one day. But then you came, all your little pals tagging along to check out the older models that never saw any children anymore. That were retired. Only Spring was ever online, wasn't he? Too mischievous to stay offline, too knowledgeable of his own systems to allow that. Smart mouth on that rabbit, you know. Never liked me much, but that's for other reasons. Goldie was listening, they were sure, though she didn't show herself. Ray had no doubt she'd cry harder at Springtrap's next word. Isn't it interesting to think? Springtrap said thoughtfully. The things were a little different. You'd be the one possessing Spring here, not me. Have nothing if not poetic. I'm so proud. Just trying to throw in a little cleverness. A little style, you know. Hagrid and Ginny, best friends. May as well be siblings. Paired with Spring and Goldie. I don't care as much about the others. Went on to dance around even stare at offhanded mentions of who was whose favorite. They stared in silent horror. I wonder, would you have murdered Jeremy too? What about Scott? Ruby? He glared and swallowed, painfully aware of his finger against her throat. Well, she ground out easily, that's not what happened. Nor is that what's going to happen, she said. You seem so sure. You've yet to kill Ruby. What's 1 kid versus 6? She's got you outmatched. She flashed a grin at him, a half smile of force and pain, but a defiant one nonetheless. Springtrap growled, his own words suddenly dropping. Foolish words to hide behind, Vicky. He froze as he felt her flinch in pain at the sudden pressure he accidentally put into his fingers, leaving the promise of dark bruises in her shoulder and neck. She barely could notice, far too focused on refusing to cower before him. But the reaction was there. He stilled and stared at her, mental gears beginning to turn. A wool of red fur suddenly appeared between him and Hedy, breaking the physical contact and interrupting his thoughts. That'd be enough out of you, Foxy snarled viciously, getting into Springtrap's face. Springtrap seemed surprised for once. Well, what are you going to do about it, Captain? He moved to shove past the pirate, but Foxy snarled like Mangled and sidestepped, keeping Hedy behind him. He had far more practice with just what he could get away with when bound by a deal. Most of it was in a tent, so the building didn't punish him for intervening, as he didn't intend on fighting Springtrap. He had rolled back slightly to avoid Foxy tripping on her, as Mangle pulled her feet up on the table for the same reason. She and Hedy, and nearly everyone, if they were being honest, stared at Foxy like he grew a furred head. Freddie watched, seconds from helping Foxy keep Springtrap curled. Corralled? Springtrap's immediate reaction was to sneer and try to swipe at the box, but Foxy didn't even flinch as the fist stopped far away from his head. He glared at the rabbit with narrow eyes and eye patch up. The killer frowned and lowered his hand. He shifted, and Foxy matched his movements, knowing Springtrap couldn't get past him without being violent, something the building wouldn't allow. Springtrap scoffed. Phew. He glanced at the clock. Till next time then, kids. See you later. Foxy ground out, slow and daring. Springtrap to stop walking as he stared at the back of the other amateur's head. Hope the laugh makes a good home movie from tonight. You can act as confident as you want. We all know that she's walking all over you, though. Springtrap faltered in his steps for a moment and glared at Foxy. He hit the killer in the only weak spot they knew of so far, his pride. He stormed from the room. Things were quiet for at least a few minutes. Goldie appeared, falling to the floor to sob as Chica and Bonnie tried to comfort her. She'd been struggling all week, but hearing about spring again? She missed her best friend. Toby's ears fell back and he sagged. Teddy and Freddie both stared at Foxy, who didn't move yet, but continued to stare at the doorway with a livid glare. Thank you. The soft murmur from Jeremy snapped Foxy out of his furious daze. The man stared at him, a distrustful frown on his face, but nevertheless he nodded at Foxy, lips pursed together. He tried to say the same, but the only noise that came out was a cracked squeak as tears pooled in her eyes and she angrily tried to wipe them away, turning her face to hide in her sleeve. Megan could helplessly and jumped off the table to hold Hedy, shaking his hand. Hi, Hedy whispered. If not for the tears streaming down her face, she wouldn't have seemed too unbothered, voice and all. Foxy looked down at Hedy. Lass, I got me 2 reasons for not liking ya. He coughed and tried speaking normally, his fire accent more dominant when he was agitated. Only 2. 1, you're a mechanic. I don't like mechanics. Your father being the one that tore us apart doesn't help in the slightest. 2, he turned his voice back as he stiffened and instantly glanced at his hook, completely unaware she did so. You're too forgiving of these little brats. He glared at the ghost, leveling a narrow stare at the silent Felix, who glared defiantly back, but didn't say anything. But that's it. Plain and simple. I can't even be mad about you giving the Barbies leeway anymore. Toby glared at the fox for using that stupid nickname Ruby insisted on, but wisely kept quiet. He still had a few system issues that he had yet to fix. From the last time he made Foxy mad, that was a lesson he wasn't going to forget soon. The fox animatronic pointed out the door, his accent leaning back as he stressed. That monster don't need to be anywhere near you, much less laying a hand on you. We can't be calling ourselves any better than him if a grudge with 2 measly reasons is enough to make us fine with him doing that. Magel shrank back as she realized she should have done what Foxy did much earlier. She ducked in shame. Was she really that scared of Springtrap that she just sat there while Hedy took the torment? Several blobs seemed to realize the same thing. Goldie cried harder. She couldn't even be in the same room. Jerry's face told a similar story, though he had tried to keep Springtrap away. He was too aggressive, though, and this particular building hadn't liked that. He rubbed his arms, the pain still aching. You're right, Foxy, Chica said gently, despite how she felt herself. She knew the fox was going to keep ranting and giving a chance. Calm down a little, please. We should tell Ruby, she whispered, still behind Chica. We can't do anything about him. We'd only worry her. Freddie grunted, not any happier about the situation. He thought back to the tongue lashing Ruby gave them the previous night and frowned. Foxy growled and smacked a paper party hat off a table. Yeah, but she could beat it up a little more, Bonnie muttered, immediately wincing as Goldie hiccuped. He forgot there was a reason Ruby was being careful. Besides, do you really want to risk another lecture like the last one? She breathed sharply and wiped her arms again. Tell her, just don't go into details, please. I don't want to talk about it. Too bad. Everyone looked at Marionette. Leave it alone, Puppet, Teddy complained. I'm just curious, Puppet said stiffly. I was under the impression that you had no idea spring existed before last month. He shrugged. I guess we were friends. I don't know. I can't remember. You can't remember. Puppet sounded unconvinced while Freddy glared at him despite his own curiosity. I was very little, Murray, he snapped, glaring at him with red eyes. I don't even remember you back then. It's all vague nightmares and old videos Jerry made that I rewatch every so often. Jerry might be surprised that she still had those, but he continued. My doctor said I blocked out a lot of memories. Back off, Puppet, Goldie snapped. Surprising a lot of them. Or do you want your past dragged back to the light, Mari? Mari? Her voice was so far removed from her usual gentle voice that everyone stared at her in shock. Puppet jerked back as though slapped and abruptly disappearing back to his box. You don't remember me? Mangled asked, waving to catch Hedy's attention. He grinned. It wasn't a conversation they had in depth yet. Very little. Do you remember me? Mangled nodded sadly, as did the others, making Hedy glance at all of them. I'm sorry. And that's the end of chapter 72. So, hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like on this video. And go leave a review. Don't need an account, but according to the beginning of the chapter, the author does have a look at guest reviews, or reviews guest reviews, if that makes sense. Or something. I don't really get it. But, yeah. Go leave, show the author some love. They deserve it. They wrote it. And if they deserve it, I don't want any comments. I'll have a like, but that is it. But you go leave a review. Like I said at the beginning, chapter link is in the description below. If you can't use the link, then it's fanfiction.net and it's chapter 72. Go show the officer's mom. Go, we're done here, but before you go, be sure to subscribe. I'll upload new videos every Friday and Saturday. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the next chapter of Beauty of the Mind.